You know how every home has that one spot, the place you think about throughout the day where you can finally exhale? For me, it's my bed. But here's the funny thing, it's not just my bed anymore. Be honest, who in your house tries to sneak into your bed the most? At mine, it's a toss up between my husband and my daughters. And I get it, like it's technically my husband's bed too, but it's my bed. But I get it because of the Cozy Earth sheets, and I have the silk comforter and the linen duvet cover on the silk comforter. It's like being the VIP lounge of the house. It's like sleeping on a cloud and being wrapped in a cloud hug. And I just love it so much. In fact, as I'm sharing this with you, I want to go and lie in bed right now. Their sheets, as I've shared with you, are made from viscose from bamboo and they naturally wick away heat and moisture so you sleep several degrees cooler. That means even on those nights when it feels impossible to get comfortable, I actually wake up refreshed. Thank goodness, because I need to wake up feeling that way. And it's not just the blanket. Of course, you can get any of their blankets, like the bubble cuddle blanket, or as I've shared, I have the silk comforter. It's a really true full on experience. The bubble cuddle blanket, in fact, has such a plush texture and mid weight feel that it's perfect for curling up in the bedroom or draped across the couch as a cozy centerpiece for all of your guests. And we're approaching fall, which is my favorite season, and then winter is my second favorite season. So that means that it is the perfect time to cozyify, as I like to say, your homes. And honestly, it makes those mornings when you just can't get out of bed even harder. And that's kind of the point. When life feels stressful, that's the spot I can't wait to retreat to. My Cozy Earth bed feels different. It's where my comfort and comfort for my family lives. And once you try it, I guarantee you'll never want to go back. The best part, of course, is that there is zero risk. You get a 100-night sleep trial. So if you don't love it, you can send it back, though I promise you won't want to. There is also a 10-year warranty because once you feel this level of comfort, you want it to last. So do yourself a favor, head to cozyearth.com and use my code HUMANHR for 40% off. And if you get a post-purchase survey, let them know that you heard about Cozy Earth right here, because your bed should be more than just a place to sleep. It should be your happy place too. Cozy Earth makes that possible. Welcome to the Bringing the Human Back to Human Resources podcast. I'm Traci Chernoff, and I've spent my entire professional career in HR. Each week, we'll explore the delicate balance between people and business with the aim to reconnect the two and create meaningful outcomes. Listen in as I share my own experiences, challenge the status quo, and chat with guests from various industries about our mission to bring the human back to human resources. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast. Thank you so much for being here for another week. This week, we are speaking with an experienced and accomplished business leader, and we're going to spend a lot of time focused on upskilling and reskilling, which is actually something that many of you reach out about. How do you make yourselves, future proofed? How do you get your career to go from point A to point B? And so we'll talk a lot about that. And especially for those who are, maybe decision makers in businesses, you'll hopefully also get a lot of information about what you can do to best set up your employees for things like getting from point A to point B in their careers, or making some shifts to really future-proof not only themselves, but also your businesses. So let me introduce you to our guest this week, who is Tan Moorthy. Tan is an accomplished business leader with over 3 decades of experience in the global IT services industry, with expertise in multiple corporate functions such as strategy, operations, education, talent development, and technology implementation. He's currently an advisory board member and strategy consultant in the areas of workforce transformation and sustainable development. He retired from Infosys as an executive vice president after working there for 23 years, which is so amazing. As part of the Infosys core team, he worked as a head of delivery operations for US, Canada, and LATAM, which is Latin America, in case anyone is not currently in a global role, as a group head of HR, global head of education, chairman of the board for Infosys Public Services, and trustee on the board of Infosys Foundation USA. Tan continues to be a champion of innovation in sustainable development and has even led a UN work group for defining industry-specific metrics for corporate teams to meet the sustainable development goals, such as SDGs. So Tan, welcome. Thank you so much for joining the podcast this week.
Traci, thank you so much for this opportunity to interact with you. Thank you for the introduction. I would just add that I'm currently the CEO of Revature, which is focused on bridging the talent gap for clients and workforce transformation.
Fabulous. Thank you so much for adding that, which is actually a very important part of your of your introduction here too, because you've taken all of your experience and all of your knowledge, and now you've put it into your own organization effectively.
Yeah, it's a great opportunity now to be working with Revature as their CEO.
Yeah, absolutely. That's amazing. And I'm curious, where did your interests and passions start? And especially when we read through your background, you've kind of covered a lot of operational and strategic territories, including HR. But where did that inspiration kind of come from?
Great. Thank you, Tracy. So I think for me, the journey started, of course, as a software engineer myself. But what I figured during the course of my journey and quite early in my journey was that it is not enough to have content, but you need to have communication as well. And that content and communication are two sides of the same coin. If you need to succeed. And that came through several experiences I had, one of which was where a client actually rejected a work that my company had given to them because they thought the technology solution was great, but the person who was leading it didn't seem to communicate well, and that was me. And so the company lost the proposal, and that is when I realized the need for both content and communication, and started focusing on my own development and,
Wow.
and learn about communication. I joined Toastmasters and then started interacting with a lot of people. One of the accomplishments in that journey for me was to be on the same stage as actually Steve Ballmer, who was at that time the CEO, I think, of Microsoft. So the ability to learn and really do what is required to be professionally relevant started with that experience. And since then, it's all been my passion to see how can we help people who have the inherent capability but not have been able to reach their goals, learn the need to learn, right? And
Right.
continuously develop themselves. And that's why I'm passionate about learning.
That's really wonderful to hear, and thank you for sharing your own personal experience with this. When I think about what you've just said around learning and being what many would call like a lifelong learner, I think a lot of us, myself included, yourself included, would attribute ourselves to that type of category. In terms of how we describe ourselves, and something that a guest recently said to me is that podcasts and YouTube channels and even like AI, like ChatGPT, which we'll probably talk about AI a little bit later. Those are all avenues for people to not really even just teach themselves, but find additional learnings outside of their typical workday. Or, I certainly hope that my podcast provides people with some additional knowledge. And so when you share your own experience, I also am curious, when you think about this hunger for learning and really growing yourself, do you have other places outside of maybe coaching or different training sessions that you've been a part of that allow you to continue to learn, even at this stage where now you're a CEO? And for many people, that's like their pinnacle, like where the very top of their career goals, right? So how do you continue to learn even after achieving what is generally the highest level in business?
I think one is to be curious, and the second is to spend some time reflecting. Both of those help. The third is also to move outside of comfort zones. In fact, the many roles that I've had the opportunity to play, especially at Infosys, came from my own desire to move out of a comfort zone, because when I got comfortable in a role and when I saw that there could be other opportunities, especially related to people, I started to venture into that. And I've been very, very lucky to have had a great company and a great set of managers who encouraged me to do that. But the opportunity came because I also pushed the boundaries and wanted to get out of comfort zones. For example, going from a line of business into corporate function was something
Right.
a lot of people told me that I shouldn't be risking that because I was doing well in business. But I took that opportunity, and because of passion, and that led to a lot of other opportunities that came through in my life. So getting out of comfort zones is another thing that you need to do to continuously learn.
Yeah, what a great point. And when I think about generally this topic of upskilling, reskilling, and as an individual, future proofing ourselves and being able to adapt to new roles or new environments easily through learning and like I said, through upskilling and reskilling. I also think about what I talked about just at the beginning, which is there's a business context here too, that when employees have this opportunity to upskill, reskill, there's a future proofing on the business. And when I say future proof, just for everyone listening, when I'm kind of referring to the ability for a business to flex and kind of be elastic, let's say, in their abilities and in their sustainability. I mean, we think about even the last 5 years, right? It's 2025. And in the last 5 years, we went through a pandemic that shut down businesses, closed offices, everyone started working from home, to getting through that pandemic, having to adjust. And some businesses did extremely well. Some businesses suffered. Some people did really well. Some people suffered. And then you fast forward, there's another election. There are all of these economic changes. And so that's just in a 5 year window. And when I think about the elasticity needed for a business to be able to survive and really thrive through all of that, it's not just the product or what you're delivering to a customer. It's to me fundamentally how the employees are able to adjust and be elastic through those things. And I think upskilling and learning and reskilling are a big part of that. So I'm curious how you have, especially as a business leader yourself, how you have helped your teams to be prepared for those types of like climate changes in businesses, or in business, I should say, so that they can future proof or be elastic and adapt.
So, if you look at competence, which is really a combination of knowledge, skills, and attitude, uh, it is important for people to know what exists out there and also know their own passion, to bring that together, right? And learning comes from a combination of things. One is your own education and how you use the opportunity that you have to learn new things. That's where the knowledge part comes. And then the skills come from practicing those. So giving people the opportunity to practice those skills. And the third is exposure to people who already have those skills. So looking up to others who are doing it and learning from them. So it's the combination of education, engagement, and exposure with experience that kind of helps people to learn, upskill themselves. And that is really creating that ecosystem is an important job for any leader. So as you look around your teams, it's important to see what is their passion, what is the business need, and how do you marry the two to create a learning opportunity for them? How do you line up or align them with people who might be able to mentor them? And how do you also give them maybe projects that they can work on that can help them practice those skills and become better?
Yeah, that's so great. And I was thinking about something as you were talking about even these projects and how you marry the passion or the interests of the person with the needs of the business. And the two thoughts that came across my mind were that first and foremost, there is a huge value proposition here for businesses to do that, because not only are you investing in your people then feel invested in and they are more committed. And the second is that I'm sure you probably have too, in my experience in my career, I've heard other business leaders say, I don't have time for developing people in this way. We're busy, we have a lot of a lot of fires to put out, we have a lot of things to do. How do you navigate pushback that might come up like that? Because it does happen. I don't think I've ever worked at a company where it didn't come up, where someone was like, how do we balance this with all of the work that's going on? So I'm curious about your approach there.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's natural because that's our natural tendency to take the path of least resistance, right? Unless you're
Right.
passionate to do something. That happens.
Right.
But I think the value comes in educating people on the need to do this and how they benefit. Then at the end of the day, you got to show a win for people who do those as much as people who are being mentored, right? And
Hmm.
the sooner you get people to recognize that this process of mentoring is not one way but a two-way. For example, if you are a mentor for a Gen Z, there is so much you will learn from how they approach things.
So true.
versus looking at it as saying, I don't have time to talk to them or trying to mentor them.
Right.
It's really not, mentoring is never a one way street, though it is kind of meant to be, or it's classified as a hierarchical thing. It is not. It is a peer to peer learning. And sooner we make that mental shift to say what I'm trying to do here is peer-to-peer learning, I think you'll find people acknowledge and get involved in the process of working with others to make that difference. And that I think is an important shift that needs to happen in people's mind, and it happens over a period of time. It happens as people see other people succeeding with it.
Absolutely. I think those are great points, and there's also this element to mentorship that really reminds me of the value people have or receive, I should say, when they volunteer, when they do something in their communities. It's a very similar feeling or sense of self-worth that you invest in when you're like, "Oh, I'm helping someone else. I'm helping them navigate a time in their career that I remember was quite challenging, whether it's first career or first job, I should say, in their career, or first time managing people, or first time with a large team, whatever it might be, or just that they want a mentor because they want to grow. And that feeling that you get when you actually are able to help someone and help guide them, and they rely on you and they're grateful for the things that you've learned and that you're sharing with them. It's that same, that same feeling or that same sentiment as when someone goes out and cleans up a local park or, serves out food at a soup kitchen. We can all understand, what that feels like because we've probably done it in our lives. And it's like, oh, I'm doing something for someone else. That feels really good. And to me, mentorship is very similar to that because even though to your point, it is certainly a two-way street, you are hopefully a mentor because you want to be able to do something for someone else and help someone else other than just yourself. So I think that's a really important point. And one of the things that I also thought about here too is that something that I share with my team all the time is that when we share knowledge, we're investing in one another. And so often I hear from listeners, from people in the industry, even colleagues in the past who are either afraid of sharing knowledge because they're afraid that it will create a redundancy for themselves, or they're so close to the chest because they don't want someone else knowing how to do their job because it's like a threatening thing. But that's so short-sighted, and it's really not how we collaborate best, right? People need to be a part of understanding how things work. And so to me, sharing knowledge is a huge um, it's a huge window into how someone thinks, whether it's a leader or an employee. And I encourage everyone really listening to see just something as simple as like, hey, colleague so and so, I want to show you how I do this, because it's better for us all to know how to do these things so we can support each other. And that's how I lead my team, because if I'm doing something, they should also know how to do that same thing. And it's a development, opportunity for them. And I see you nodding your head, so I'm curious. I'm assuming you agree with that, but I'm curious, how do you kind of reflect on that, like especially when it's sharing knowledge, but also just from a team element, when you have people who are working side by side, how they interact in that, and not see things as a redundancy, but actually as an opportunity to build each other up.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And first of all, it's important to realize that if you don't share knowledge, somebody else will.
Mm,
Second,
hmm.
that knowledge is not proprietary to you, it is available. If somebody wants to learn, they're going to learn it no matter what. You are better off sharing it because then you can also learn from them and you can benefit from it as much as the other person benefiting from you. So,
Totally.
sharing is something that people need to learn to do more because fundamentally, what I believe is the more you give, the more you get.
Agreed. Agreed. I love that.
And that's why you need to share. Uh, so,
Right. Give to get.
yeah.
And it's interesting because I was thinking too about your point that the knowledge is available, and what happens when you actually are the one sharing. And it leads me to think about this concept of like innovation. And we talked a little bit when you and I first connected about AI and things like that. And of course, AI is probably one of the first things that we think about when we think of innovation, because it is not necessarily a new technology, but it's something that now is accessible to all of us in
Mhm.
a different way,
Yeah.
or in many ways, I should say. And yet, innovation is not necessarily just a technology. It's also how we share ideas and create new ideas. And so, when someone is sharing knowledge, to your point, if there's a mentor mentoring someone who is in a different generation from them, and the ability for them to learn from that mentee, let's say,
Mhm.
there's opportunity for innovation, because that mentee could ask questions that the mentor never asked themselves.
Yeah. That's the value of interaction. That's the value of getting multiple perspectives. Because if you're going to
Right.
surround yourself by with people who think like you and act like you, neither one of them is going to learn.
Right.
Because
So true.
you need to be surrounded by people, and you need to have the courage to have that interaction with people who
Right.
think different from you, because that's how
Right.
you learn, and that's where you can test your own capability and learn from others on what they already know, and together you can innovate, because the two perspectives might lead to something different, which neither one could have thought through individually.
Absolutely. It's such a great point. It really is, and I think it's really relatable, right? Because we all as individuals, yeah, we're all thinking that way or acting that way, or want to be in a situation where we're like sharing ideas and having that interaction with people. I mean, it's true, that is the value, and I have said on my podcast more times than I can count on both my hands that as much as I would love to be in a room full of me, and a
Yeah,
bunch of Tracy's, there's no value there, because it's just an echo chamber at that point. And I like to call it diversity and perspective. And so you can have diversity in all of these other ways, which is amazing. And having diversity and perspective and backgrounds and education, that's really very valuable to the overall like innovative experience that businesses need ultimately go through all the time. People probably don't even realize they're innovating, but anytime we brainstorm, like going back to grade school, right?
yeah,
Brainstorming sessions are basically just exchanges of ideas, and it sets us up for being innovative thinkers.
yeah,
So,
absolutely.
yeah, bring it back to the basics, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
and which is where upskilling comes, because when you do the upskilling part, what you're really doing is one, from a business context, when you need a certain skills for your project, you have two options. You go out and get somebody who has that experience, or you look at people that you have and upskill them to be able to do that. When you go out and hire somebody who has that experience, and sometimes you will need to do it, one, you are for sure have to pay more than what you pay somebody who have internally, right? So you create that imbalance.
Right.
But on the other hand, if you upskill the existing person, you're now giving them a pathway to be better, earn more, and most importantly, here is somebody who already knows your systems, who knows the ecosystem, who knows the people. Because getting work done is not just about the knowledge that you have, but also knowing the ecosystem and the people that you're going to work with. And that is really what upskilling helps do for a business. Create
Right.
uh, people who already know a lot and now need to get that topping on the skill part, and can be most valuable to you because they're productive on day one, because somebody coming from the outside will take certain amount of time to know the systems and know the people, even though they might have the knowledge to do stuff, right? And that's the power of upskilling.
Amazing. I love that. It really is a wonderful place to be, to realize like where where the value is. And for us as individuals and business leaders, how we can see that really as again a value proposition with a very distinct return on investment, frankly. And so it leads me to my final question for you, which is for the listeners who are really interested in gaining more skill set, being even more competent, being able to again be elastic, what is like one recommendation that you would make to them today to upskill themselves further, or at least inspire within themselves this you know uh, thirst for constant learning, so that they can have a deeper sense of competency within their industry, within their roles?
I think the first thing is to have a personal goal to be better than what you are today. And think of the future where you have no definitions of what that can look like, right? Because with the pace at which technology is changing, it is hard for you to now define roles or positions that will exist 5, 10 years from now. And the only way you can stay relevant in that changing times is if you're learning with the times.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, got to learn at the speed of change for you to stay in the same place that you are, let alone to run.
Right. Right. That's great advice. And I'm certainly walking away with some added things that I can do. And frankly, I think personal goals it's really a great piece of advice because again, it's not overcomplicating this. When we think about even just going back to our beginnings of education, there was always that when we think, at least in my experience growing up, there was such a focus on, okay, what is your goal for this year? What do you want to be when you grow up, right? Like those questions are really asking us to identify personal goals and focuses on our achievement. So I think your advice is really well positioned for us to all think about how do we upskill ourselves by starting with the foundations and the fundamental pieces to this.
Yeah. And a more fundamental question to ask is how do you plan to stay relevant in this changing world? And the only way to stay relevant is to learn with the times. So,
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Tan, thank you so, so much for your time today and for imparting all of this wisdom on the listeners. I know I certainly appreciate it. I'm sure they will as well. Where can everyone find you and get connected to learn more?
LinkedIn, Tan Moorthy at LinkedIn. You can find me there. I also want to thank you, Tracy, for doing this, and I also like the title of your program because I've always
Thank you.
believed that any HR professional needs to realize that the H in HR stands for human, and therefore the more people think of people first and then the resource in HR, I think we'll all be better served. So thank you for doing this.
Thank you. And amen to that. I couldn't have said it better myself. I really appreciate that. And I think you are certainly in good company there for sure, because the listeners, I think, agree with you. That is why they hopefully listen. Well, Tan, thank you so much. And it was really a pleasure getting to learn more from you. And we'll be sure to share your LinkedIn and all of the links in the show notes as well.
All right. Thank you, Tracy.
Hey, just before you go, don't forget to subscribe to the show so that you are the first to hear when an episode drops each week. And maybe leave a 5-star review and a comment about how much you loved this episode. Plus, if you have someone in mind who would really enjoy this episode, make sure you share it with them. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you next week.